Hello and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Friday, July 14th, 2017, and this is episode 25. My name is Carol and I am known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry. The show notes for this and every episode can be found on the blog at astitchintimepodcast.blogspot.ca, and they can also be found in the Ravelry group in the episode thread. And you can find the Ravelry group by searching A Stitch in Time Podcast under the Groups tab. Something I keep forgetting to mention is that I am holding an Agatha Christie along, which is a knit along, crochet along, that I'm holding in conjunction with reading my way through my Agatha Christie collection in order of publication. I forgot to mention that the last few weeks. It's very casual knit along, just come in, come by, share whatever projects you're working on that are somehow related to Agatha Christie. It may be a pattern that's been specifically designed, having been inspired by one of her characters or her book titles or Agatha Christie herself. Or if you can find any way you can relate a pattern or even a yarn colorway back to Agatha Christie somehow, go for it. It's not meant to be very strict, it's just meant to be a way of forming some community in our group, and it's been really fun to see the various projects that people have shared, and sometimes the very unique ways, pardon me, they found to somehow link their project to Agatha Christie. Our latest project in the group, or in that thread, is from Anne Maria Wolf, and she has been sharing her Tea and Scandal socks that she's knitting out of a beautiful pale pink speckled yarn. She's doing little shorty lace socks with bright pink contrasting heels, toes, and cuffs. And I just as I was recording, or just before I was doing the recording and checking the, just before recording, I was doing my show notes, and I see from her project page that she's actually finished. So be sure to come by the group, Maria, and show those off. All done. They look great. And thanks for sharing them there, being a part of our group. As you can probably hear in my voice, I've been down with a cold this week. Actually, Monday I didn't have a voice at all, and Tuesday I only had about half a voice, and I'd say I have about a 95% voice today. So I'm a little froggy, a little sniffly. So I've got some tea and water and Kleenex here. Hopefully I can keep the coughing and hacking and sniffling and clearing my throat to a minimum, but please forgive me if it's a little bit rough. If I didn't podcast today, I wouldn't be able to show you one of my finished project. It's leaving the house tomorrow morning, so I wanted to get the recording in today. I'm just going to take a sip of water before we get going into that, and then we'll jump in. I have to, as I mentioned, I have a finished project. I have some works in progress, actually quite a few. Talk a little bit about what I have up and coming, a little bit about what I've been reading, and also tell you what's been going on this week and what's coming up for us next week. So, finished project. Last week it was just an up and coming. It is this Easy Hoodie by Kurtzer pattern, SR Kurtzer Company. As you can see, it's for marble. It's for marble DK. And here's the pattern number, SRK 196. This pattern is not in the Ravelry database. If you search for it, it does come up with the chunky version of the sweater, but as I've seen, it's actually even a little bit different. The hood construction is different than this one. So I'm not sure how you can add it if it's not your own pattern. I know I've added a couple of patterns I've designed. I don't know how to add a pattern that is somebody else's. So maybe someone knows how to do that. In any case, I've written down the pattern name and information on my project page if anyone's interested. So I knit this out of the suggested yarn, which is Marble DK by James C. Brett. And this is MT3 is the colorway I used. This is yarn that I've had for a long time. I'd originally bought it for a sweater for myself, and I remember this is, I think well, I know I bought it when I worked at the yarn shop, and I think when I left there in 2008. So that gives you an idea of how long I've had it. And at the time, I believe I had knit the front and the back. And even though I had knit the same number of rows for both pieces, when I held them up to each other, my gauge had changed significantly from one to another, and I just wasn't happy with it. I remember just taking it out, and I think by then too my tastes had changed a bit. I don't really knit acrylic sweaters for myself anymore, but I thought it'd be great for a baby gift, which is what this is for. My husband's co-worker just became a grandfather, and he's kind of a special to me, and so I wanted to do something for him. So here it is. I'm very happy with, well, I'm relatively happy with how it knit up. I have some issues with this pattern, and I'm going to talk about those. But I did some yarn management so that the sleeves do come out the same. And because you split, it's not quite the same at the front and back. But I'm happy with how that turned out. The pattern is written in pieces. You knit the front and the back, the two sleeves, and then you join the sleeves to the front and back, and then you knit the hood and sew it on. I altered it a bit by knitting the sweater in the round up to where I split for the armholes, and then I did a 3-needle bind off on the shoulder seams, and I picked up for the sleeves around this armhole, and I knit down. I did knit the hood as written. You begin it at the bottom, and you cast off some stitches for this part here. Continue knitting up, and then you cast it off, and you sew these two seams together, pick up around the hood and knit this band, 2x2 ribbing, and then you sew the hood to the neck opening. Okay, here's my issues. If you've watched this podcast, for the most part, I have positive things to say about most everything, and if I can't say something nice, I usually don't say anything. This one kind of bothered me. It's a pay-for pattern, so I do expect a little bit more. This is the only picture there is of this project. There's no schematic other than giving you the chest measurement and the finished length. There are no other measurements that you can go by to know whether this pattern is going to turn out as you expect, how the fitting goes. So what I did is I took the suggested gauge and I used those numbers to determine things like, okay, if I wanted to knit this in the round, how big an opening do I have to leave for the sleeves? And that worked out fine. I mean, I was able to do the math, and it worked out fine, and I think that I believe as constructed, I think it's pretty well the right size. Another issue I had was with the hood, that these are the instructions. You cast on, you increase, you continue in stocking stitched until you cast off here. And then it tells you to, there was the part that I thought was toe shaping, which apparently is this part. Did you know this was called a toe on a hood? I did not, but apparently it is. At least I think it is. I think I've sewn it all together the right way. All I'm told is to sew the side edges at top of hood to bound off stitches, which I did. And then I was told to sew the hood to neck opening, having the front centers meet. So I'm guessing it's right, but because there are no other pictures, there's no schematic, I had to just assume that I did it right. And the reason I question it is because if you can see, this, it doesn't really lie nicely. This hood opening, or this neck opening, is quite deep. And I feel like the hood tilts towards the front because this hood is not made deeper in this section to account for this neck opening. So, you know, it's fine. It's for a little baby. Did I mention I knit the 6-month size? It will be fine. We'll never knit it again though, and I'm not really happy with it. With the way that it fits. See, it doesn't even sit nicely. It's got this crease. When you go to block it, I kind of had to fold it in to make it lie nicely. Anyway, another thing, and it's just a matter of using the acrylic yarn, is because it's not a wool or natural fiber, they don't, the seams don't block out as nicely. I can't get this seam to lie flat, and that's as good as I can get it, but it will do. I'm going to take a quick Kleenex break. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. That's life these days. I've gone through a lot of Kleenex this last week. What I wanted to show you is that I picked up, oh no, the colors are not showing off as well. This is a kind of a denim blue. It's actually very similar to the blue that's in the sweater. So a little pair of pants to go with it. And then I bought this set of onesies that's got grays and blues. And again, colors not necessarily picking up as true to life, but in real life these actually match the sweater really well. And I figure new parents can always use onesies. That one's really cute with the animals. A little navy denim blue one. So this is getting packaged up later today, and my husband's going to deliver it tomorrow morning. So that was a very quick knit, as you can see. I had told him that I wasn't necessarily going to try and rush through it. I'm really trying to be mindful of enjoying my knitting and not imposing too many deadlines on myself. But I had a lot of knitting time. I had a lot of knitting time this week, just not feeling well, and it was a pretty mindless kind of knit for the most part. So as it turned out, once I got going on it, I really did just want to see it through. So I'm glad to have that out of the way. So lots that I've been working on. Got all gathered here, so bear with me as I pull out project bags and such, patterns, etc. So the first thing you've seen, you're probably sick and tired of seeing, is the Sprites Fan Shawl by Helen Stewart. There's a picture of the finished shawl. Mine will look much the same as it did last week, but I assure you I have actually added some rows, 10 to be exact. And I think I'm getting close to where I'm going to call it quits. So the yarn, as a refresher, is from Fleece Artist. It's called Saldana, and this is the hemlock colorway. Whoops, covering myself up. And it's a half pie shawl. That's quite a good color representation when I hold it back here. I'm going to hold it there so you can see the lace. It's got sections of eyelet lace alternating with feather and fan. More feather and fan. There's the eyelet section, and then the final section is feather and fan. Whoops. Yeah, it's a little bit, as you can see, a little bit awkward to handle. It's on a 40-inch needle. There we go. I've been toying with how long to make this. It is lace weight, so it's obviously going to work up a little bit smaller than the fingering weight version. I do know it's more than my wingspan now, and if I stretch it out, it's definitely past my waist. So I think it's reaching a point where I'm ready to finish it off. So I think what I'm going to do is finish off this current 8-row repeat, and then work the final 8 rows as written, and then be done. So this is it's Still have lots of yarn. I've only used just over half of what I had, which was about 150 grams. Part of me just wants to keep going and just make it ginormous and use up more yarn, but I also want it to be functional, and I know if it gets too big, I'm just not going to use it. This is something I intend to just have at home to wrap up in. Because being a lace weight, it would be nice for, you know, one of those spring or summer evenings where you just need a little something around your shoulders. Not necessarily a heavy lace shawl, or heavy wool shawl, I mean. So we'll see. I'll make that final decision once I've finished this 8-row repeat, and then I will get a really good sense of how big it's going to be, and then make that decision whether that's going to be the final one. Definitely I have enough, pardon me, I'll have enough left over to do at least a small shawl if I should choose. Or I may not want to use a yarn again after all that, but we'll see. Okay, socks for Ed. These are socks, just plain. Oh, I didn't bring my sock blockers over, but that's okay. These have not changed much since last week. They're just plain vanilla socks I am knitting for my brother-in-law for his birthday, which is in November. And I decided I would knit them now because the yarn is very dark and hard to see. So last week I had just completed the heel flap and picked up for the gusset, and now I've completed the gusset. There is a better sense of the fact that this yarn has color in it, and actually that's a pretty good representation there, except that these lines that look blue are actually a violet purple, so they don't come up that way. But there's there we go, and the second one looks just the same. The yarn is Regia Design Line K-Facet, and it's in the anthracite colorway, which is 2903. So these I'm going to now that the gusset's done, I'm going to reserve that for travel knitting, probably in the car, because it's easier to see when it's, well, at least in the daytime. If I'm riding in the car, I'm finding it's even too dark for TV knitting in the evening. Our family rooms, we usually keep the blinds down, and it's kind of dark in there. So that's what I'll do with those. Okay, next project are what I'm calling my Lazy Hazy Days of Summer Socks, and I'm knitting these for the Grocery Girls July Sock Bash. They are by Valerie Hobbs, and I see she's also goes by Laughing Star Knits as the pattern indicates. So as you can see, it's like an alternating eyelet pattern with this kind of cable-y leaf pattern. I am knitting them out of Ancient Arts 3-ply fingering sock, and this is the Vancouver colorway. For those who don't know, I live not too far from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and so I thought that was a yarn I should own. This is how it looks in the cake. You can see there's quite a bit gone, and that's because I have knit my entire first sock. So that gives you, I've realized this, and I kind of knew possibly going into it that maybe this yarn was a bit too busy for this pattern, but you know what, I don't care. It's been a fun yarn to knit, seeing all the colors come up, and they're just fun socks, so be it. So there's a little cable. It's not actually a cable, it looks like one, but it's formed with yarn overs, yarn over knit two togethers, or slip knits, depending on which direction you're going. So it's not a true cable, but it has that appearance of the stitches traveling, and then these eyelet sections here. Half of the eyelet sections are slip knit yarn over, and then the when you reach the next, so that first half would be that, then the next half they become yarn over knit two together. much more fun doing the knit two together. I'm discovering that. I'm enjoying those sections more and flying through them a little faster, but it's not like the others are so bad. There you can see the other side. Got very concentrated color in here for some reason, but that's okay. So anyway, I have one sock down, and I actually have the other one cast on, and I've done the first 32 row repeat on the second sock. And I actually started the second sock, this part, the first 16 rows give you that, and then you switch up and you do the next 16 rows. The eyelet section and the cabley section are offset. And what I actually did is started the second sock on row 17 and did row 17 to 32 and then row 1 to 16. And this way the socks will be mirror images of themselves because of the way that the stitches lie. So it's a little picky thing, but when I can do that, I do that. It's just a little touch. So yeah, so well on my way to those. I was panicking a little. I was looking at how far I was and how far we were through the month, and I thought I better get cracking on those. We're already halfway through the month, if you can believe it. So now I feel a little more in control. Oh, sorry, I'm reaching out of frame. Feel a little bit more in control because now I'm more than halfway through that project. Just flip my show notes here. So my next project is the Sugar Maple Shawl by Angela Roberge. That's it there. It's a triangular lace shawl in a fingering weight yarn. This I'm doing for the Grocery Girls 150 Canada 150 make along. And so I can see several things that are Canadian about it. One is the yarn is, again, Fleece Artist, Canadian company. And this is Kid Dazzle, which is a mohair, nylon, and wool blend. And it's in the red maple colorway, so I figure that's number 2. Red maple leaf is what is on our flag, very reminiscent of Canada. And also the shawl itself is related to maples. So I have chart A done, and I've just started chart B. And as you can see, there is like a maple leaf motif that forms the center, top center of the shawl. And then we knit this kind of an eyelet section for a while. That's chart B does this. And then the shawl ends with another section of maple leaves along the edge. So I figured out I'm just a little over 10% through. And I have to knit this chart B till I have about 60% of my yarn left, which will be about 77 grams, and then I begin chart C, and that's a way of ensuring that you have enough to complete the shawl as written. So very happy with how this is going so far. My favorite color, red anyway, and it's kind of fun to do something to celebrate Canada's 150th birthday, which occurred on July 1st. So this yarn is not showing up quite true to color. It's a little bit deeper, a little bit more crimson. It looks more true red in this, or blood red or blue red in this. It's a little bit pinkier, but still very lovely. And I'm keeping this in my Canada project bag, maple leaf project bag that I made for myself. So that I'd like to get back to. I did this all, I think, in a day or two, and I haven't touched it for a few days, so I'm anxious to get back to that project. And one more thing that I just cast on last night. As I mentioned, those socks from my brother-in-law are very dark to work on in the evening, and so I thought I would cast on another pair of plain socks just so that I could work on if we're watching TV in the evening downstairs. So this is from Opal, the yarn. Let's see if I can say this right. Hunter Twassers, and I realize that's an artist. And the colorway is based on this painting. The yarn colorway is called Blind Venus, but the actual painting I discovered is called Blind Venus Inside Babel. So is that holding that close enough, hopefully? And so I have finished the cuffs on both. I'm going to knit 2 at a time here. So you can see nice primary colors, blue and red and yellow, green. I guess green's really a secondary color, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I'm quite happy with those. I think they're just nice, bright, fun colors. These will be for myself. So there. Again, TV, travel knitting. Okay, need to take a little break. Be right back. Okay, so last week I had shared a number of up-and-coming projects with you, and as you can see, I've started a couple of them, the Lazy Day socks and the Sugar Maple shawl. One thing I have not begun and am not going to is we did receive the third pattern for the Shawl Society 2 from Helen Stewart, and it's this stole called the Vila Wrap. As you can see, it's a 3-color shawl with a lace chevron section and then a striped chevron section. And I just decided this is not my style. I don't wear shawl or stole styled shawls as a rule. Just even the chevron-y nature, it just didn't speak to me, unfortunately, because most of Helen Stewart's designs I quite like, and I'm sure that there will be many beautiful Vila Wraps knit. It just one of them won't be by me. So in some ways this is a little bit of a relief. It frees up my time to finish off the Fairy Hill shawl before the 4th shawl is released, and we just learned today that that is going to be a 2-color shawl. So I can go back to my stash and start coming up with some combinations for that. And I do look forward to the next pattern, but I won't be knitting that one. My felted slippers, which I wear frequently, this pattern, Fiber Trends Felted Clogs by Bev Gillespie's. I live in these, well, not in the summer. Summer I usually go barefoot around the house, but it's time for a new pair. I've been putting it off, so I did pick up some Peyton's Classic Wool. I'm going to do the cuff part and soles in the red, and I'm going to do the uppers in this gray marl. So this is called Bright Red, color 230. This is Light Gray Marl, color 77251. So those I'm planning to work on pretty soon because my current pair are, the heels are gone. I'll put them on in desperation in the evening if my feet are cold, but really it's time for a new pair. Something else my daughter asked me, she brought by this fabric. It's a TARDIS police box, yeah, TARDIS, Doctor Who themed fabric, and some navy, and she asked me if I would make her friend and her project bags out of this. So that I will do fairly soon. She's a real if it's sci-fi, she likes it. Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, all that. She's into all that stuff. So I'll get on to those pretty soon. What I'm reading, I'm just going to reach over here. I finished up Mr. Parker Pyne Detective, or Parker Pyne Investigates, as it's also known, by Agatha Christie. And it actually was interesting. The first part of the book clients generally come to his office in London and have seen his ad in the paper and pardon me, are seeking his help. Whereas the last half of the book, he is on a trip in the Middle East, and different problems arise that he takes care of. And the very last story in this actually had a really interesting twist, kind of unexpected, and so it ended on a quite a good note. So there, I finished that one. And then what I hadn't realized till the other day is when I was getting ready to go away a couple weeks ago, I was almost done this book, so I had grabbed the next book off the bookshelf, which was a Hercule Poirot mystery, I think. I think it's The Murder in Three Acts. But then I forgot, I had tucked away in my knitting bag, and so I had started this one, Death in the Air. So I actually skipped one. I have to go back and when I finish this and go back one, read the other, and then move on. So this is also Hercule Poirot. There are, let's see if it tells you how many people. There are a handful of people on a small plane heading from France to London, and a woman is murdered apparently by a poison dart from an African blowpipe, and they're trying to figure out who done it. So our favorite detectives on the case, and I think I know where this one's going. I have read all of the Agatha Christie books before, not in order of publication. So sometimes I have some memory of a story, and this one I don't even know if I remember it so much as that I just have a feeling I know where it's going. So I'll let you know if I'm right. I'm definitely not always. So that's what I'm currently reading. And you can see about 2/3 of the way through. So yeah, that kind of is the end of what I've been working on, what I'm reading. I'll tell you a little bit about this past week. As I mentioned last week, my son-in-law's mom had a serious stroke, and because of some other complications was not expected to live very long, and she indeed did pass away last Friday evening. And my son-in-law was with her, so I'm happy about that. And I learned that she was more conscious than I had first believed. I believe as the week progressed that, because I know right when it first happened, she wasn't cognizant at all. And so she did recognize family members and was able to communicate a little bit. So I think that will have brought peace to the family for sure, knowing that that they were able to talk to her and that she was able to hear them and communicate a little bit back. So very tough, of course. I think though it's a relief to know that she's at peace now and not suffering anymore. And but tough times, obviously, for my son-in-law and his family. And so yeah, so that's not happy news. As I mentioned, I've had a cold that came on, beginnings of it Thursday morning, the day after I had podcasted last. Maybe my bit of froggy throat had more to do with that than I realized. My husband has had a cold, and he just passed it on to me. Thanks so much. Whereas he didn't have a lot of the head congestion. I've had the sinus congestion and the chest congestion, and a bit of a cough. I'm in that, not the dry cough stage yet, the other cough stage, and so just trying to get, my body's just trying to get everything out, and as we say, it's better out than in, but it's not much fun. I think I mention I had laryngitis earlier this week, which is no fun either, but definitely have turned a corner, am on the mend. One thing about not feeling well gave me lots of time to just sit and do a lot of knitting and napping every day, and just trying to get better. So the big news in British Columbia this week has been wildfires. We have, I think there's over 200 fires burning currently, several really major ones. Two small towns have been completely evacuated. There is another larger town that's been partially evacuated, and the rest of it is on alert. The winds have made it very difficult to fight a lot of the fires, and it's just feel terrible for the residents who've been displaced and some who have lost their homes. Firefighters have an incredibly difficult job ahead of them. Where my mom lives, she's in between two of the fires, so her town is safe currently. Both would have quite a ways to go to reach her, but they're, while not exactly cut off from the rest of the world, the main highway leading to her town is closed currently. One of my sisters and her husband were going to be going up to the cabin last weekend, and that didn't happen because of the fire. That's when they broke out late last week. There's one burning not too far from where I live. Well, I'm nowhere near as in we're in danger, but I live very close to our municipal airport, and there have been helicopters in and out constantly, and some with, you can see the fire bucket on them, so they're obviously aiding in fighting that fire. I have a cousin in one of the communities that has been evacuated, and initially went close to friends fairly close by, and then has since relocated to her sister's place, which is well away from the fires. So I know I heard from my mom, she said there's a lot of smoke in the air this morning, which is usual. We've had our skies have been hazy here, either from the fires from the interior that definitely could be pushing some smoke down this way, and also, as I mentioned, there's one not too distant from where we are. And so we know firsthand how devastating it can be. In 2009, we had a forest fire that came right behind our summer property. My parents and aunts and uncles were there at the time, had been put on evacuation alert, and were ultimately evacuated, had to leave the property, and then they ended up doing a burn-off right behind. We went up in the fall to check out the damage, and it was about less than 200 paces from where they did the burn-off down to the corner of one of my uncle's cabins. That's how close it did come. The fire crews had sprinklers on all the cabins, and no buildings, thankfully, were lost in that fire, but it was quite a major one, too. And the town where my mom lived, the town where my mom lives had been put on evacuation alert, and so they had moved a lot of their belongings up to a storage container in one of the neighboring towns, ironically, one of the towns that is now under evacuation, for safekeeping, and thankfully it never came to that. But they're a destructive thing. I know many of you, I'm sure, have been affected, or at least have had them in your states, etc. California, I know, often has a bad year for forest fires, and down across the line in like Montana and such. So I'm sure some of you are no stranger to the wildfires situations, but boy, it's a bad year. This is just the beginning of fire season, so let's just hope that the winds do not I don't know if you can hear that. There's a helicopter coming in or going out now. Let's just hope that the winds are not as severe as they're expected to be this weekend, and that these firefighters can get a handle on this situation. It's pretty scary. So just trying to think. Oh yeah, my husband. He's going. He's going away for a few days, leaving tomorrow with a fishing trip through work. So it's a fun getaway. What's weird about this one is where they go. There is no communication. They have a satellite phone for emergencies, but there's no cell phone reception. So he'll be completely gone from my life for 4 days. But hopefully he comes back with some fish. Last time he went a few years ago, he had caught some halibut and some salmon and some rock cod. So it was all very yummy. I'm really hoping that he is successful this time too. So I will have, I've got some jobs I want to get done this weekend. I really need to get out to the flower garden and weed it. And I did some tidying up I'd like to do, organization. But other than that, I should have a few days where I can get some, definitely some crafting and reading done. So I'm looking forward to that. And then he comes home Tuesday evening, and he works Wednesday, and then Thursday we are off for a 5-day holiday up to the Okanagan region of British Columbia. Plan to visit some wineries one day, and we're doing a bike tour through, it's an old, there's an old railway line called the Kettle Valley Railway in British Columbia that the railway is no longer in operation, but along the way there are still some tunnels that have been preserved, and in a couple of different areas, and some trestles and such. So the bike tour takes place through one stretch of this Kettle Valley Railway. So I'm looking forward to that. I have been on a bike in a long time, but I'm hoping riding a bike is like riding a bike, and that I can get on and do okay. I don't really anticipate any problems, but knock wood. And then the Sunday we are participating in that region's work golf tournament, company golf tournament. So my husband had golfed that course where it's being held not too long ago, and he really liked it. So he said, do you want to go up to the Okanagan and participate in their staff golf tournaments? So we always do the one in the Lower Mainland here. This will be the first time we've gone to another, but we been paired up with a couple that we know and like, so it should be really fun. So then we'll spend a day getting there and a day coming home. So that takes care of 5 days. So that's nice. It's nice to have something to look forward to, a little getaway. That's if the fire situation stays out of that region, because so far so good. But yeah, let's hope that that our plans aren't thwarted by that. But so because of that, there will not be a podcast next week. But when I come back in a couple of weeks, I should have plenty to talk about and plenty of projects to show you. So take care until then. Thank you for watching. As always, thank you for all your kind comments this week. Good wishes for my son-in-law's family, and appreciate that very much. Always appreciate when you reach out. So thank you. And yeah, till next time, take care and happy knitting.